Today, I am going to be talking about the life of the first Karmapa. And these teachings are based on the book 900 Years of Karmapas. And the first Karmapa was born in 1110, the current age. And he was born in an area of Tibet that was very remote. It's called Kham. It's in the eastern part of the country. The center of the country, where Lhasa is located, is considered more the cultural center of the country. And people from Kham are frequently looked at from the center part of the country as being like hillbillies or hicks. And they have a very thick accent compared to the people from central Tibet. I noticed this very quickly when Taisitu Rinpoche visited the 3-year retreat that I attended, and that is because Taisitu Rinpoche speaks with a Lhasa accent, a cultured accent, and Khenpo Rinpoche speaks with the accent of a Khampa. And I could not understand Rinpoche very well. And when Taisitu spoke, I started picking words out. It's not like I'm great or fluent in Tibetan, but I started understanding the speech much, much more when Taisitu spoke with his Lhasa accent, because that is the accent that we try to pronounce when we learn these words, the pronunciation of these words. So he was born then in this area of Kham called Dresho, Dresho. He was born to rather humble parents, but the family had a great aptitude for spiritual practice, a greater aptitude for spiritual practice than worldly success. And his father passed on this appreciation for the Dharma to his son. His son was given the name Gepal, which means virtue increases. Ge is short for Gewa, and then Pel means increase. So he showed signs at a very early age of being a good practitioner. In some versions of biographies of the first Karmapa, Dusum Khyenpa, they talk about a period of, quote, subduing, and don't say too much more about that. But here in this book, it goes into this in much greater detail. When the Karmapa was a teenager, and now it's important to get some perspective, and that is that when we are teenagers in this country, we are considered minors. You don't get to drink until you're 21. You can drive when you're 16. High school lasts usually until you are 18, and it's mandatory. Whereas in Tibet, especially at that time, when you get to be 16, it's about time to start thinking about getting married and starting a family. And so what happened was that he fell in love with another girl or a woman. It was the same old story that has been repeated over and over again. Another boy or teenager stole the girl from Dusum Khyenpa, and he was very upset about this happening. He actually showed every sign of being in a jealous rage. And so he sought out a method to kill the man that had stolen his lover. And he learned and practiced the same black arts that Milarepa had used, and was successful in destroying this competitor, you might say. The man did die. However, once he realized what he had done, he never did marry the girl or the woman, and he decided to leave his householder's life behind forever. He had developed renunciation for being a householder. So he took up monastic ordination at the age of 16. So this gives you an idea of how young he was when all of this happened. He would have been no older than early 16 years old. probably 15. He came to realize that attachment and desire come from within, they cause suffering within, and that the cause of happiness lies there as well. And he developed renunciation. It's said that renunciation is compassion turned inwards. Upon receiving his monastic vows, he had a vision that the Buddha presented him with a black hat. Later on in his life, he made a physical hat that was modeled after the design of the one in his vision. And this became the first black hat associated with the Karmapas. And it was during this period that he was given the epithet of Karmapa, which means being of enlightened activity, being as a sentient being of enlightened activity. But it was given to him as a secret name. And frequently, secret names are given out at high empowerments. And they're not spoken, they're given on a card or a piece of paper. And it is a Vajrayana name, and you are not supposed to tell anybody that you have been given this name. The secret name came out much later. I'm not sure when, quite possibly after the first Karmapa had died. Within 3 years of his ordination, so that was by the time he was 19 years old, he went to central Tibet, where he could study with very highly regarded scholars, monks, practice teachers, and so forth. All of this would be more readily available there in central Tibet than it would be out in the boondocks of Tibet. So he started out with the major philosophical texts in Tibetan Buddhism, and then went on to the Tantras. And he read things like Asanga, Chittamantra, and Madhyamaka teachings, the Dharma. And he was first studying with Nyingma scholars and monks, teachers. And then he went to the Kadampa Center of Penyul, and he studied more Madhyamaka philosophy there. So he spent many, many years in central Tibet studying and training, receiving all kinds of teachings. He actually received a set of 6 yogic practices associated with the Kalachakra Tantra and practiced those. The Kalachakra Tantra is the highest Tantra in Tibetan Buddhism. Very, very few people have practiced it enough to be able to give an empowerment in the Kalachakra Tantra. The Dalai Lama does this. The third Jamgon Khantrul gave Kalachakra empowerments. I believe Kalu Rinpoche did, but both of them have long since left their bodies and have been reborn. I don't think there's anybody in the Kagyu tradition right now that could give a Kalachakra empowerment. And to give you an idea of what it means to be this highest Tantra, when we did Chenrezig this morning, we visualized ourselves as Chenrezig, and that was it. With the Kalachakra, you have a mandala of deities in the east, west, south, and north. And when we do medicine Buddha, there is a mandala of deities and so forth. In the Kalachakra, there are over 600 deities in the mandala that you need to visualize. So it's a very complex Tantra. On the other hand, it's a very powerful Tantra, and Dusum Khyenpa practiced this. And also, he trained thoroughly in the Vinaya, which is the text describing the Buddhist monastic discipline. At the age of 30, he decided to search out for a master who would show him the highest realization on the path. And he had heard of Lord Gampopa, And so he went in search of Gampopa. And he had not studied with any of the other Kagyu masters, other students of Milarepa. Gampopa, on the other hand, had over 50,000 students and was quite well known in most of Tibet. So he traveled to see Gampopa. He went to Dagla, Daglah, Dagla Gampo. And this is where he first encountered Gampopa's nephew, Gomsel, and took teachings from him. And then after that, through Gomsel, he requested an audience with Gampopa. And if you remember, Milarepa made Gampopa wait for 2 weeks in a cave before he would see him because of Gampopa's arrogance. Well, Gampopa made Dusum Khyenpa wait for 2 months because Gampopa felt that Dusum Khyenpa needed to learn a little humility. So he came to Gampopa with this strong intellectual understanding of the Dharma and a lot of practice. Yet when he did finally have an audience with Gampopa, Gampopa agreed to be his teacher, but said he would only teach him the Lam Rim, or the gradual path, which Dusum Khyenpa had already studied years earlier and was very familiar with. He didn't offer him any secret transmissions or special instructions or anything, just advised him to practice Lam Rim and said, quote, "I practice this, so you should do so too." He had a lot of faith and devotion for Gampopa, and Dusum Khyenpa practiced this diligently, even though he wanted more advanced teachings. Later, Gampopa did give him more advanced teachings and Vajrayana teachings, and he entered a solitary retreat for 9 months. And he engaged very intensely with this practice, was a very good practitioner. It says here in the book that wearing only a single cloth, he meditated with such exertion that the perspiration ever dried from his hands for 9 months. So he continued to study with Gampopa and practiced in many other areas. Now, there's a part here that I skipped. Before he did this 9-month solitary retreat, before he was given these advanced teachings, after practicing the Lam Rim gradual path, after he traveled various parts of Tibet, much like Milarepa, meditating, then moving on, staying in a place, meditating, moving on, he came back to Gampopa and told Gampopa about his experience and asked for further instructions. And Gampopa said that he was disappointed with Dusum Khyenpa and that he needed to practice more. Gampopa was actually encouraging Dusum Khyenpa to develop strong conviction in his own experience. Dusum Khyenpa practiced more, and finally he came back to Gampopa and said, quote, "There's no way this is wrong. Even if it is wrong, this is how I'm going to meditate." Gampopa responded, quote, "Son, you have already severed the bonds to samsara." During this time, Dusum Khyenpa also studied under Rinpoche, who was one of Milarepa's main disciples, a good teacher and highly realized by his own right. So from him, he received the full transmission of the 6 yogas of Naropa. And this is a practice that you learn in 3-year retreat. Just to clarify things, these yogas are not the yogas that you think about what you do in this country at a yoga studio. Most of them have nothing to do with stretching the body. They are things like a dream yoga, illusory body yoga, and so forth. He received these instructions on the 6 yogas of Naropa from Rinpoche, Gampopa gave Dusum Khyenpa instructions on Mahamudra and Vajrayogini. Then Gampopa told him to practice Mahamudra far to the east in an area of Kham called Kampo Gangra, that this would be of great benefits to beings. After 14 years from the time that he first met Gampopa, Gampopa had his parinirvana. When Dusum Khyenpa learned of this, he was devastated. He felt just terrible. And when he was told this, he made supplications, he wept, and so forth. And he was with his nephew Gomso and another disciple of Gampopa when he heard this. As he was weeping and supplicating, a vision of Gampopa appeared in the sky, visible to all three of them. And that this did a lot to ease Dusum Khyenpa's pain. And he commented, quote, "The Lama came to dispel my grief." So after this, he traveled to Kham to practice Mahamudra in this area of Kampo Gangra. So he had been gone for 30 years. He returned now at the age of 50 and followed Gampopa's instructions. And during this period, Dusum Khyenpa engaged in dream yoga and is one of the 6 yogas of Naropa. And he attained a very high level of Mahamudra, where the boundary between sleep and wakefulness, between meditation and ordinary activities dissolves. Well, he was in Kham. He quickly attracted disciples. And before long, he had over 1,000 monks in a community. And he founded a monastery, Kampo Nenang. He also developed a reputation for being able to settle disputes. He was mediating between factions across Kham, and the authority was at this time broken down into clans and perhaps different sects of Buddhism, and even teachers, and politics and Buddhism kind of got mixed together, and there would be a lot of conflicts over one thing or another. He became quite adept at being able to bring parties together and reach agreements. He founded a second monastery at 74. This is Karma Gon. His main monastery today is Serpu, but he has not founded it yet. He has a lot of students, gradually develops the lineage more fully. His parinirvana was 1193, but before that, he did establish the Serpu Monastery, which is in the Tolong Valley. That then became his main monastery, or the main monastery of the Karmapas, over a period of successive Karmapas. So the name Dusum Khyenpa means knower of the 3 times, indicating that he was omniscient, the 3 times being the past, present, and the future. Along with that, he established his parinirvana. He had left a letter behind predicting where he would be reborn. And he did something that had never been done before. And that is, he came back and established this tulku tradition in Tibet. Before that, after a great master died, that was it. Nobody thought to look for his rebirth. But the first Karmapa left a letter explaining where he would be reborn, and they found him. And all the Karmapas have left letters behind predicting where they will be reborn. And now, since he started this, that many, many great masters in Tibetan Buddhism are found, not necessarily by leaving a letter behind, but signs are looked at and are identified and then brought back to the monastery. And what this does is it gives stability to the monastery because you have the same being coming back lifetime after lifetime after lifetime to be in charge of the monastery.